and welcome to Rauta's opinion video. This time it's all about Bathory, one of the greatest bands like ever, and as it seems to be the case, I have been listening to a lot of Bathory albums lately. Why so? Well, because of this video obviously, and I don't want to get stuck all the time just with my review albums. It's nice to actually listen some favorite ones of mine every now and then. And now that I've been going through the discography back and forth, picking some of the more vague choices, like in order to put them in a certain not direction, but in order to make this direction from worst to best, I think I've nailed it. Who knows, my opinion might change in a few years, because actually what I really found out about myself and about her discography, having been listening to it since 90s, no, I didn't hear Bathory in the 80s, but 90s, and having that as a favorite band for more than 20 years, that is one of the favorite bands. I decided to make a video, much like I did with Darkthrone, Bathory, and so forth, about this video, like what is my favorite Bathory album and what is the least favorite, how they are in order, related to each other and so forth. Now this time I don't even have those CDs of mine, or LPs for that matter, here with me. I decided to go with this kind of metal archives thing, because it's actually a little bit easier to do that way than present you these physical CDs or albums, whatever. So let's open this metal archive site, take a little bit whiskey to make it more sound better. Alright, that's about goofing enough. So as you can see, Bathory has quite a nice discography. Started already 83, and then unfortunately when he passed away, that era kind of ended with quite a selection of albums. Now those of you who have no idea what Bathory's music is all about, let's just scroll a little bit here towards the upper part of the site, and as you can see, genres: black/Viking metal, thrash metal. Lyrical themes: Satanism, evil, Norse mythology, tales, society, death. Well, as you can see, some of them have marked later. And that is kind of what makes Bathory so interesting. Not only he was one of the creator of black metal genre, but also he was one of the founding fathers to create Viking metal. And even though he later on turned to thrash metal, he kind of came back to even more Viking metal. And with these kind of three more or less dominating genres he had his part of, it's kind of interesting how it turned out to be various degrees of success with the music. Now, definitely one of the hardest bands for me to put these albums in certain favorite order, because for example with Darkthrone it was kind of easy. It's almost everything is black metal, or then some punk, heavy metal, whatever, and one death metal album, but still most of them being kind of relatively logical in ways. And Bathory even easier. It's just death metal all the way. But with Bathory things get kind of complicated. So let's start with my least favorite album. Now let's scroll back and forth, and I would have to say Octagon from 1995. This is an album that only luckily lasts less than 40 minutes, because even that is too much. I don't know even where to begin with, on this album, because first of all, it's horrible production. Everything sounds kind of terrible with this album. The bad drum machine, bad guitar, and bass sound. It's just like ear-breaking. Well, on top of that, Gorton, the basically only member in Bathory ever, even though there were other members in the beginning, but still, Gorton being the only guy really. I mean, he doesn't even do those vocals so well. he used to do. I mean, he's one of the best black metal vocalists of all time. So why with trash vocals things are trashy? I don't know, but Octagon is kind of a horrible album. I would say it's roughly like 3 out of 10 or something that. Yes, it's really, really bad. Surely it has some riffs here and there which are, I guess, quite okay. But with the production and overall feeling, the album is, to be honest, quite bad. Now, almost as bad is Requiem from 1994, so only a year before. Now, this has a little bit cooler cover image. Not that Octagon is bad as such, but this is kind of a ominous. And even the track list looks kind of okay. I mean, there are some cool names with these titles. However, pretty much the same words apply to Octagon, which just go on with Requiem. Because, I mean, both of these albums suffer from bad production. Vocals are, at best, kind of a decent. The drum machine is bad and everything is just like, oh, Gorton, why did you do it? Why did you just force us to facepalm? It is indeed quite horrible an album. Now that we got rid of those horrible albums, actually Bathory kind of makes a interesting notch up thing. And the funny thing is, this came only a few years later, and it's kind of a combination of some of those different styles of what Bathory was doing. This one is called Destroyer of Worlds, and it came out in 2001. Now, being 65 minutes an album is quite a load for anybody to kind of chew on. But the thing here is, this is a combination of those trashy elements, once again, quite bad ones, but I think a little bit better than on Requiem and Octagon. But also some of the pretty cool Viking metal songs. Now, these are not the style that actually came with Destroyer of the Twilight of the Gods and Hammerheart, but Destroyer of Worlds is more related to Nuland 1 and 2 albums. So it's definitely later production, but it has some really cool songs. And even among those trash songs, there's some of the better ones, like ice hockey themed Sudden Death. It's actually quite nice a tune for Bathory trash metal song. But still, with that being said, Destroyer of Worlds is not exactly a good album. It's kind of a decent, so if we are here already on decent level after 3 worst ones, it's all gonna be good right now, okay. And then it came kind of a complicated for me, because of the early ones, which are raw, first wave black metal, followed by some Viking metal stuff, then again little trash and Viking metal, trash Viking metal, and Viking metal again. Where would I go? Would my selection of the best ones be purely black metal? Would they be Viking metal? Well, as it seems to be the case, and this is something that totally divides people's opinion. Some say I'm totally wrong with it, and it's fine, really. I mean, when we were talking about our favorite bands, obviously it's really cool that everybody has its own opinion, instead of everybody having the same opinion about which order they would go. And this selection, my friends, is something that most of you won't agree, but it's totally okay. This one would be The Return from 1985. Now, like I said, we're talking about good albums only. Let's just forget the low bottom 3, which are, in my opinion, not worth owning. I have gotten rid of them, so why bother? This one is actually very cool cover image, especially when we're talking about the kind of a second wave thing. There's this classic, really sinister kind of a midnight thing where you can see that glowing ball in the sky, and the rest is just dark with some clouds and all that stuff. I kind of love this cover. One thing I really don't get why there is so many dots. Dots. Anyway, if we take a look at this track list being a little more than 30 minutes, there are no weak tracks. Actually, some of them are rather great tracks among the Bathory's first wave black metal tracks, but still this somehow manages not to be as good as some of my more favorite Bathory albums. I mean, like everything here is pretty decent, but none of them are, with a couple of exceptions. Oh goddamn, I cannot even talk anymore. Are not that good. I would say Born for Burning and one of the best being The Return of Darkness and Evil. Really great tunes, but for the rest, it's just okay. It's good, but not that good, I'm afraid. Now that being said, it's kind of weird that the next best album, I mean, if we're going towards the best, that is, would be not right here, but actually Nuland 1. Why so? This kind of a cold blue, white eyes covered album, when it came out, I got it for review. It came, like you can see pretty much, 2002. I already had started my review career, if you can call it. And I was enjoying, because I mean already back then I had been listening to Bathory for quite a long time, quite a few years that is. And I already had a deep connection with Bathory's Viking metal stuff, that epic level music, which was just something beautiful and touched me deep in my heart and all that stuff. Now I'm not gonna get romantic because I'm not a romantic guy, but there is something very touchy feely stuff with this Bathory's Viking metal stuff. And even though Nuland 1 is not even near my top albums of Bathory, there's still something really great going on. However, this is kind of a well-balanced album with no actual peak moments, except for one really, really good track. So if you had to listen to just one track, it would be this uber atmospheric song called Ring of Gold. It was actually my ex-girlfriend from like over 15 years ago who kind of pointed me out it later on. Maybe I had forgotten it, I don't really know. But when I gave that song a kind of a new listen, if you will, I started to really, really like it. Not because of my girlfriend, but I mean, the ex-girlfriend that is. But she kind of pointed it out and I had to kind of listen to it like a new pair of ears, if you will. And it's still among my favorite Bathory tracks, especially when we're talking about Viking metal tracks. But in general, I mean, really touching track. Now, all rest of the tracks here are pretty consistent and nice to listen, but nowhere near where Ring of Gold is. So if I would be doing a best of Bathory album, Ring of Gold would be there. Then again, there is no need if you take a look. In Memory of Quarton, volumes 1, 2, and 3, plus the earlier Jubileum volumes. Well, that's beyond the point. Now, my next selection would be Nuland 2. And this was kind of hard for me to decide which one of these is actually better. Nuland 1, Nuland 2. Because they're very much like a double album, just split with two different releases. Already came out within like 6 months or so. So it seems like they are kind of like siblings, you know, like brothers or sisters, you know, made of same material, really. And this also has one track that is above the rest here on the album, where the rest of the album is pretty consistent with each other. And like I said, it was hard for me to choose which one to go with, you know, with Bathory albums, with these Nuland albums, because they're pretty much the same quality overall. But the Messenger is really good track. Even it's 10 minutes long, I feel like there's this killer riff which really gives me kind of this high and mighty inspiration. There's something so Manowar about it, but still Bathory kind of makes it so much their own stuff. But then we have pretty much gone through all the later albums, except for one. And now this is also a tricky moment. It would be kind of easy to say, yeah, the next one on this list would be Blood and Ice. But in fact, it's not. It would be the debut album, simply self-titled as Bathory. And this one has his classic Bathory goat image, which you've seen in so many times on t-shirts, and it makes great t-shirt. And this yellow one is, by the way, the rare one. You've seen probably other versions, but this one is the real deal. Anyway, this already started what Bathory was known for, you know, the kind of a raw black metal, the first wave style, like Venom, but so much more aggressive, so much darker, so much sinister, vocals being way beyond that Venom ever could do, basically. And in my opinion, the songwriting is a lot better as well. I mean, Venom is after all kind of rock and roll, where Bathory is pure metal. And if you take a look at the riffs, I mean, if you really listen to them, you can pretty much kind of feel the kind of a trashy feeling with those ideas. Then again, it's no really a miracle considering that this came out in 1984. And by that time, so many trash bands already had some of the material out. So while Bathory was early on with its black metal, and definitely among the first black metal bands ever, with thrash metal, not exactly the early bird, not late, but still. And, you know, all the songs here are pretty good, much like with the Return album, but I think here are a little bit better overall. Now, this is of course a matter of opinion. I think Return and the Selftitled album are actually pretty much like Nuland 1 and 2, pretty much like carved from the same stone. So these differences are not that big. But there's something more magical with this first album, which in my opinion makes it a little bit better, and hence it would be on this spot. And now the news tightens. Which albums will fit the top 3? Let me take a look. We've seen the first one, we've seen the second one, then there is these 4 albums in a row. And I'm not gonna touch them, not just yet. I'm gonna pick Blood and Ice. This is something actually that I have as a t-shirt, and I kind of like this. I mean, it's very goofy, it's very nerdy, it's very fantastic. There's Leipnir, the 8-legged Odin's horse. There are lots of these mystic images, like probably Fenris Wolf among the others. There is this world serpent maybe, or one of those serpents. Trolls, ravens. Maybe this is Odin himself, you know. Very strong Viking imagery nevertheless, and I like the color, you know, feeling with this album. But like I said, very nerdy, but in a good way. It's kind of a mythological nerdy thing anyway. Now, being almost 60 minutes an album, this is also very consistent in quality. There are mostly just rather strong tracks. So in my opinion, this is very close to being 5 out of 5 albums, or maybe it actually is a 5 out of 5 albums. Not 10 out of 10 if I had to choose the line between 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10, but still a strong album. And even though the intro is not that big deal, I mean, it kind of creates the mood for the rest of the album. The actual tracks are the deal here. I mean, songs like Gods of Thunder, of Wind and Rain, really great track. Everything from here, like Man of Iron, Blood and Ice, Stallion, Sword. I mean, it's just powerful album all in all. It's very Viking-like, it's very epic, but not in the same way as Twilight of the Gods or Hammerheart. But still, and this is maybe the album where you can probably feel the Manowar feeling more than with other Viking albums. I don't know, that's just my gut feeling in a way. But that kind of proves that Gordon is able to pick some cool elements from different bands and make them own. Have cool guitar leads, guitar solos, have even good vocals considering he wasn't that good of a vocalist. But he has this personality with the voice and all. And I think all the pieces just fall together with Blood and Ice. It's a really, really nice album. Now, being said that this is kind of a 9 out of 10 album, what can you expect when you have still quite a few albums to go? That is 1, 2, 3, 4. Top 4. This was once again really tricky for me. All these albums came out within 4 years of each other, so I think this is kind of a golden era of Bathory, and in my opinion it really started with Under the Sign of the Black Mark. being the kind of a last purely black metal album from Bathory. And this kind of ended with Twilight of the Gods because after that came Requiem and Octagon, and as I already stated, they are crap. But also this was kind of a hard phase for me to figure out which one would go first and which one would be the second, third, and fourth, because I kind of already had it figured. I already kind of knew which one would be my top three. And now that I was listening a couple of times this whole discography all over again, I wasn't sure anymore. I had to question myself and kind of understand and accept that my own opinion has changed through the years. So the number 4 would be the X number 2, and that would be Twilight of the Gods. Why number 4 then? Now the thing here is, once again, really beautiful cover which totally fits the mood on this album. That is very epic, almost 60 minutes of an album with great tracks. Long, albeit long tracks, still so much power with these songs, and the overall Viking metal mood is just right here. This is much like a sibling to Hammerheart, as much as Nuland's are brothers, as much as the two first ones are brothers, but this is not as good in my opinion. I mean, even though they're really killer tracks like Under the Runes, which is I think one of the better tracks of all Bathory era, and especially with the Viking stuff, still the overall is a little bit kind of lacking those peak moments. So while I still love this album a lot, and I would say this is roughly 9 out of 10 album, it couldn't fit my top 3. And the thing is, the competition is so goddamn intense, because all these top 5 albums are so goddamn good. Now, once again, as you can see the pattern here, it's bouncing between black metal and Viking metal and black metal. And I really didn't see this one coming, but my number 3 would be Under the Sign of the Black Mark. And why this of all these old school first wave pure black metal albums? Well, I think if we just remove the kind of intro here, they're so great tracks. Woman of Dark Desires, very great. Massacre, pure aggression. Call from the Grave, dark and very intense black metal. Equimanthorn, great track with some great riffs. Enter the Eternal Fire, just a solid kind of a single material. Chariots of Fire, 13 Candles. I almost want to sweat when I think about this track list. It's like a near perfect black metal album. And even the sound is not so bad anymore as it was with the first 2 albums. I mean, it's not really good, but it's better. And the drums or drum machines, whatever it is actually, I don't really care. They are not that bad as they were like later on. And still this was one of the early ones. This is definitely a black metal classic that everybody just should listen to. Not only because it was one of the first ones, but because it's so goddamn good. I mean, if you can look at past kind of a crappy production, which is not that bad, but still, given it's 220. I think this is really, really great album and totally deserves to be among the classic star map of all metal albums, especially in black metal. So, 2 albums remain. Which one is the best? Hammerheart or Blood for Death? This was a fierce competition in my mind, because once again, one of these albums actually was always in my top 1, and the other was more like the contender, if you will. So, I gave it a listen, I gave it another listen, I was pondering individual tracks, the overall feeling, and I was like, how can I choose? How can I make this video if I don't know the truth? Truth, that is, being my opinion. This is a whiskey time moment. Now, let's see. This was hard. I would say number 2 is Blood for Death. And I know this is easily one of the best Bathory albums for a lot of people right there. And I totally can understand why. Once again, beautiful cover art, classic cover art, which totally fits the theme here. Now, I can only imagine what kind of disappointment or shock this might have been back in 1988 when this album came out. Not only the sound was so much different, but it starts with this kind of a soothing not so fierce track called A Fine Day to Die, of which I think Emperor did a fine cover back in the days. It also ends with the title track, Blackfire Death, which is already a bridge to what would happen later on with Hammerheart and Violet of the Gods. A kind of a clean vocal Viking metal track, which has basically nothing to do with the three first albums. But the tracks here between are still kind of a beef and potato of this album. I mean, The Golden Walls of Heaven, Pastel Death, For All Those Who Died. Just awesome tracks. And A Fine Day to Die, quite possibly the best track on this album. Once again, this is much like Under the Sun of the Black Mark, that this has no weak moments. It's all just glory. Good production, relatively speaking at least. Great vocals and just awesome, awesome feeling. So now pay attention. 24 reviews saying average 92%. I can understand why. Now I don't know if this shows the lyrics properly, but it's worth take a look. And some of you already know this, but in case there are some people who don't know, pay attention how these lines start. S-A-T-A-N. S-A-T. Can you spell it? Satan. Just take a look. It's all great there. Satan, Satan, Satan. The Golden Walls of Heaven. Well, what a great track. What a great way to put lyrics there. Which brings me to the last album on this video called Hammerheart. This also features a great cover with a Viking warriors, Viking ship on the background or whatever. And whoa, what a track list. Once again, Shores in Flames, Baptized in Fire and Ice, Father to Son, sung up. And my favorite track of Bathory all time. No competition. No, it's not the one Road to Azabay like so many people might have guessed. It's Home of Once Brave. Really brilliant 10 out of 10 track. It just gets like under my skin when I'm listening to it. It's so much passion, so much this atmosphere, this unrelentless energy which is right there. I love this album. I really do. It's one of the best albums ever, metal or otherwise. And if we're talking about Viking metal, there's no other contender who could just beat this album. This is the best. The stuff that really gets in your brain and in your heart and just warms you from the inside out. Now, why would I choose this one? Why this has been always my favorite? Well, it kind of picks the best pieces from Bloodfire Death, but takes it to a different level. Well, all the best parts, that is, aside from those black metal parts, which are not present here. But I think in a way it's also the Blackfire Death's kind of a weak point is that it's not pure Viking metal epicness, which then again Hammerheart is. So these are the reasons why I like Bathory so much. Not only it created 4 really good black metal albums, it was one of the pioneers kind of designing the whole genre, but also with Hammerheart and then followed by Twilight of the Gods and sooner or later the other albums as well. I mean, the time span is relatively short if you think from Hammerheart to Blood and Ice, merely 6 years. So all these Viking metal albums also helped to shape the whole world beyond black metal. I think Gordon was pretty much done with Bloodfire Death, and I mean done with black metal, with the Bloodfire Death. And I think, I can only guess that is. I think he was like, we're done with it, and the torch is passed on to a kind of different generation. And if you take a look at the years, like that was 1988, that was a few years before the Norwegian so-called second wave started to emerge. And almost none of the bands actually could exceed Bloodfire Death. That is very much up for debate if any bands could do that. In my opinions, Dark Throne, with some other few albums maybe reached the same heights, like The Mysterious Dem Satanas by Mayhem and Emperors in the Nightside Eclipse. But really, Bloodfire Death is one of those albums that, once again, had no real contenders. I mean, it was so goddamn good album that only a few ones could beat it or even be, on the same level. Now with these two different genres, what Gordon, may he rest in peace, managed to pull off, it's no reason to wonder. It's no surprise why this is one of my favorite bands. I mean, if I take a look at this quite big discography, and I'm only missing 3 albums from my collection, which I don't want to have. That is Requiem, Octagon, and Destroyer of Worlds. It is still one of the rare bands which I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 albums. I mean, I don't know how many bands there are which had 10 albums which I would accept in my collection. But I can tell you, there are not even many which are more than 5. So with 9 albums that I feel that are great and definitely worth owning, I think it's a quite marvelous thing to do. So once again, this was really fun to do. It was really fun to just listen to my favorite albums and enjoy them all the way through. But gotta say, I still feel sad that Gordon is no more among us. Haven't been for many years now. But what a legacy he made. What a legacy he left. Really great band and with some really great releases. I hope you will, after this video, check some of them out. Maybe in order to just refresh your memory, or maybe that because you never actually gave them a proper chance. So, with Bathory Unleashed, I hope that you also will cherish the memory of Bathory. You will also enjoy his music, even though it's long time ago made and done. Thank you for watching this video. Should you have any comments, if you want to put your own top list of Bathory albums in the comment section, you're more than welcome to do it. I'm happy to hear your opinions why a certain Bathory album is the best or the worst, or if you don't like certain style, be it black metal, the Viking metal, or thrash metal, doesn't really matter. So once again, looking forward to your comments and maybe some questions too, and see you on the other side. Take care.